It was a relatively quiet weekend on the Duke men's basketball front. 3 open scholarships still remain. So what could be those next moves coming for Jon Scheyer and company?
Hi, everybody. Dick Vitale. Hey, make sure you listen, man. The Locked On Blue Devils with J.J. Jackson. He's awesome, baby.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. So great to have you here with us on Monday, April 29th, 2024. This calendar year, 2024, continues to fly by. Just a couple of days left here in April, and we move on to May, talking about everything going on in the life of Duke athletics. Of course, Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop for all of that. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils. I'm there as well at _JJ_Jackson_. Be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free wherever it is that you get your podcast. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review, and then watch the show each and every day on YouTube. Like this video, share it with your friends. Do all those awesome things for us here to continue to grow Locked On Blue Devils, the show. On today's show, we got to talk about these newest roster additions for Duke with our pal Josh Cox and recap a relatively quiet weekend on the Duke basketball front. So let's bring him on in. Josh Cox back with us once again. May is almost here, my friend, and I hope that you're doing well, Josh.
Yeah, absolutely. Kind of winding down from the close of basketball season. Football, spring ball is over, and so we're kind of in that Duke, I guess Duke baseball, right? That's what that's what the Duke softball and baseball right now, who are both killing it. But yeah, we're kind of in that downward slope, and but a lot to talk about. As we've mentioned before, the offseason with Duke, especially basketball, is always fun to follow.
3 open scholarships left for this Duke basketball team. A lot of people trying to figure out, okay, what in the world is Duke going to do? And I kind of ask you that question. When you look at this roster, Josh, what other moves do you think are out there to be made? Maybe not players, but the type of player that might take this Duke team over the top.
Yeah, I think the obvious choice is another guard, a small guard, somebody that can handle the ball, somebody that's strong with the basketball, somebody that can defend well, somebody that maybe is not going to be a starter, but is going to be someone who can come in off the bench and really, be that backup point guard. As we saw this year, you're always going to be prone to potential injuries, and so someone that can step in and start if need be. But I think you could really find that, in a guard maybe coming up from the mid-major level. We've seen those kind of guys be successful when they come to places, to bigger schools. So I think that's the first one, JJ, is that obvious ball handler, 1-2 combo guard. I know we have 2 combo guards, right, in Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster. But to have one more, I believe that's going to be the need there on this roster primarily. You're going to have, your Isaiah Evans kind of wing, your Malik Brown kind of wing that's already here, the Mason Gillis. That I feel like that's kind of settled. And then obviously I feel like with Malawach and Cooper Flagg, and then the rest of the guys there, maybe one more big. But with the big, you're really looking at, a backup kind of guy who will come in and do some dirty work. It'd be nice to, find a Theo John.
Yeah.
That would actually be perfect to find someone like that who will be content to kind of play a little bit of a backup role maybe and come into the game and provide some muscle. So, I don't know. I think the primary thing, though, to answer your question, is that guard position. And I really think Duke can use that.
I can't wait to see who that could possibly be for the Blue Devils, figuring out what next year's roster could kind of look like. They've already got 2 commits via the transfer portal in Mason Gillis and Malik Brown, and we'll get to them specifically here in just a moment. But if you're watching on YouTube, we've got, of course, the scholarship chart put up there. 3 open scholarships left to work with the Duke team. And out of the gates, when you look at these two new additions, you're noticing that it's a pair of upperclassmen, a lot of freshmen, a 6 freshman class coming into Duke for this upcoming season. So these two new additions, and then the guard potentially that's added, hopefully brings a lot of college basketball experience as well, Josh, because it is just such a young team that Duke has.
Yeah, and you make a great point. Taking nothing away from a Darren Harris or a Kneppel. There's nothing against these types of guys, but I believe that we're seeing overwhelmingly the closer you get to March, that having the older guys that have the experience, maybe that are the 22, 23-year-old players, seem to perform better as the season goes on. And so, once again, I'm not taking anything away. Look, we saw an incredible freshman season from a player like Jared McCain this year. I'm not saying we can't see that from a Darren Harris. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying that I believe it's obvious that Duke would benefit from 2 or 3 more guys that are 21, 22, 23 years old with some experience, even if it is, at a smaller on a smaller scale. Still, man. I mean, look, think about, the difference between, anybody at 18, 19 years old, just their body type and their physicality between 18, 19 and 22, 23, man, you fill out, you really become you become a man kind of in those years. And so that's what I'd like to see Duke do. I don't care. Really, I don't care what positions they continue to bring in, as long as it's people that are hard-nosed, can help these young guys and really produce once it comes mid-February and later.
Without a doubt, looking to bring more experience to this Duke basketball team, particularly at that guard spot. And so what are some of the names out there? We saw a really back and forth over the weekend, a wild stretch of hours, honestly, with Duke being linked to Kobe Brea, who had Duke in his finalist of 5 schools with 4 other blue bloods in Kansas, North Carolina, Kentucky. And I'm missing somebody, but Duke was obviously in the mix there as well. Thought that he was going to have an official visit to the program this upcoming week. And then our pal Steve Wiseman from the Raleigh News and Observer reporting that that's not going to happen. Duke doesn't appear to be in the cards for him. A player that was shot, 49.8% from 3-point range for Dayton. He has twice been the Atlantic 10 6th man of the year, but it does not appear like he's coming to visit Duke anymore.
Yeah, and the way that Duke seems to have played in the past, seems to have played the transfer portal is, I can't remember the last time, a guy put out his top 5, his top 3 or whatever, and then Duke won that battle. Duke kind of goes a little bit more incognito, they seem like, on a lot of these things. So I don't know what that looks like now. The landscape has definitely changed, with the transfer portal. But yeah, and it's funny. I wish that, we spoke, obviously we know what we're going to talk about beforehand. And, you wish you could come to a podcast like this and say, let me bring you these 10 names of 10 guys that I really think Duke's going to, it's just not possible. There's so many people in the transfer portal right now, and you have no idea. The one thing that I've learned in working closely with the football program is that getting admissions into especially on the grad side, is not always easy. And that's not just at Duke. That's at any academic institution. That's going to be at a Notre Dame. That's going to be at a Stanford. Anywhere you go like that, it's just a different process by which you have to get these guys approved, enrolled, accepted into grad school. And so, that's another thing, JJ. We could be all in on a player, and a player could be all in on Duke, and it just not work out, just for whatever reason. And so, Duke's got to go after the right players, the right fit, that also can come in academically. And I'm not saying anything that those people in the past were underperforming academically. I'm just saying, with the way Duke's grad programs are, things have to fall in place properly in order for a guy to even get in.
And not to mention, you're telling this player, you're not going to be the best player. You're not going to be the focus. We just need you to come in and accept your role and really help this team take it further. Very, very interesting. Got a couple of names, though, we do want to mention, and we'll do that after we take our first time out here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today, brought to you by our friends at Monopoly Go. All right, it's game on. We got to pause here to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about Monopoly Go. But there's so much more good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you could team up with friends for time tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. And there's so much more to get. Unique stickers that you can trade with friends to complete albums for big prizes, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games, like digging for treasures or a robot machine. And there's always new timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win or rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now for free on Google Play or in the App Store. Game on. Monopoly Go is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Moving forward here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils, JJ Jackson alongside my pal Josh Cox from Duke Football Talks Section 17 podcast and Duke Report. Tell me a little bit about the work that you've got going on, or social media accounts people should go follow. What do you want them to know, Josh? What do you want them to know?
Yeah, for basketball, it's at Duke Report. That's been an account that's been going for several years, and I've just become kind of part of that team over the past year. And so Freddie Hodges and I run that. And so we're going to be doing a little bit more in the writing side of things as well during the offseason. They're at Duke Report. And then for football, if you're a Duke football fan, Duke Football Talk at Duke FB Talk on Twitter. We've been running that account now for probably 5 or 6 years. We've had a podcast for 4 years. We're starting our 5th. This coming season, we'll be recording an episode later on this week that'll release. But that is all things Duke football. So if you're interested in what Manny Diaz is putting together, what his staff has done, we released an episode a couple weeks ago talking to Manny and 3 of the assistant coaches. So that's a great one to listen to. But yeah, if you're interested in Duke football, we keep our pulse heavy on the football program. And so you can find our work at Duke FB Talk on Twitter, X, whatever you call it.
Yeah, go check it all out. It's really, really good stuff. So we're talking about the Duke basketball team, some moves that could be made. Obviously, the guard position with one of these 3 open scholarships is something for Duke to take a look at. Right now, the only experienced guards are the only 2 experienced players on the roster, and Caleb Foster and Tyrese Proctor after all the turnover from a year ago. We talk about outside shooting a little bit, and a name that Duke was linked to pretty early on in the transfer portal process. Cade Tyson from Belmont, an elite 3-point shooter, the younger brother of Hunter Tyson, who played at Clemson, and Hunter Tyson now plays for the Denver Nuggets. His younger brother, Cade, was sought after in the transfer portal. And over the weekend, he committed to the guys down the road. He's going to be playing for the Tar Heels this season, Josh.
Yeah, that's a big loss there. It seems like you gotta have to give credit to where credit's due down the road there. They've really played the portal, really well. If you look back, I mean, the Brady Manick season, obviously this past season with Harrison Ingram, and I believe just another piece of the puzzle. I believe the 1 year they kind of swung and missed was that after the year after Brady Manick. I believe that was the Pete Nance season.
Yep,
wasn't as successful. But man, they landed a shooter, and who knows, man. I don't wish any ill will on a personal player. So he'll probably come in and still shoot 49%. Who knows? But Duke fans and opposing teams can hope that maybe a little bit of the Cormac Ryan syndrome hits him, and he drops 6 or 7 percentage points or more from that percentage. But who knows? Yeah, but UNC landed another solid grad transfer or transfer portal guy for sure.
Yeah, they were linked to Andre Stojakovic, of course, the son of Peja Stojakovic, who Duke was linked to in the high school recruiting days. He played his freshman year at Stanford and then was choosing between North Carolina and Cal, and ultimately is going to go play there at Cal. So there's another player movement piece from this weekend. We mentioned Kobe Brea, who was linked to the Duke Blue Devils. There were reports that he was going to be visiting Duke this week, but that has been called off. And then another name in the ACC that's now getting a little bit of buzz in Durham, Some people reporting he had been there, but nothing confirmed yet. But Wooga Poplar from Miami, 6'5", 38% shooting from three-point range, averaged 13 points per game. His name now linked to this Duke basketball team, Josh.
Yeah, I would be all for that. Honestly, that's the one guy. I mean, obviously we've seen him play this season, and Miami was just I don't know what happened down there this season for basketball. This was, I mean, a team that was coming off a Final Four run that just didn't put it all together. But he was a bright spot on that team. Like you said, averaging close to 14 points a game. And so you'd obviously like to see his shooting numbers up a tad if he's going to be like a shooter. But listen, if you can bring productivity and put the ball in the hole, I think it will be a great addition. Duke this is the first year where you've seen Duke kind of be okay with staying in the ACC, obviously with Malik Brown from Syracuse, and then maybe potentially getting Wooga from Miami. So who knows? It's a new era. Jon Scheyer is breaking barriers that 15 years ago Coach K would have laughed at, and so who knows? But I think he's actually when I mentioned that combo, that guard, that player that can come in and really help. I mean, you don't get much better than that. I think he can play that role perfectly.
Without a doubt. I think anytime you can bring that level of experience to a team, the size as well, that's one thing we're noticing from this freshman recruiting class. Proctor being the bigger guard he is. If Poplar joins the mix as well, I mean, this is going to be a really big and probably physical Duke basketball team, man.
Yeah, the shortest player on the team would be 6'5", and Caleb Foster and Poplar. So that would be a pretty tall team,
And we'd love that. We would absolutely love that. We'd love that.
Let's keep in mind too, JJ, real quick, and I don't want to get off on this rabbit trail, but I think what we have to be, I believe, and Jon Scheyer's not come out and said this, but I think a logical Duke fan is to understand every move and every decision that is being made by this coaching staff this offseason is based upon one thing: who is going to play around and fit the best for Cooper Flagg. It's just what it is. And this is the number one overall recruit. He's the number one overall draft pick next season, barring something crazy happening. Cooper Flagg is the centerpiece of this team, and Coach Scheyer is going to do his best to put guys around Cooper Flagg that complement his game, that get him in scoring positions, that allow him to be the focal point of this offense. And so we have to keep all of those things into consideration. Like that is the priority. And I think, honestly, should be the priority. I don't blame Coach Scheyer at all, but I think as we're talking about these players, we have to think about the fit. And I don't even know. I'm not on the coaching staff. I don't know exactly what that means or what they'd be looking for, but we have to think about the fit that these players will be with Cooper.
Without a doubt. I mean, that's one of the big things that we talked about a little bit earlier in the program. Is like, look, you're talking to these players. You're not going to be the first option. You're not going to be the second option. You're probably not going to be the third. I mean, there's a lot of experience coming back and just more talented players than what exactly the Duke team is looking for. So someone will sign up for that. Again, there are 1,500 players in this transfer portal. They will find the right guy. It's just a matter of who and then what that role exactly looks like for that player.
And I know we've spoken about him. I think the addition of Malawach also doesn't throw a wrench in things in a bad way, but in a good way. It's like, okay, not only do we have the number one overall consensus, player in the country in Cooper Flagg, who, by the way, reclassed up and still that number one, could have been a year, way of the year, but classed up. And then you have this 7'2", like, people are saying better than Embiid was at 17, like dunking the ball over everybody, like blocking shots. Like you have this guy who's shooting threes as well when he gets open. And so that's another one you kind of throw in here and say, okay, we have to make sure that these pieces are going to fit and they have to work properly, in my opinion, around both of these players, because I think the more I see Malawach's game, the more I'm like, this dude is really solid. And I'm not trying to put too much expectation on him, but I think on the defensive end and the rebounding end, I don't see how in the world he's not going to be dominant.
Same. Yeah, it's got to happen. It's got to happen, and I think he is going to be dominant. The note from Duke this past week, when he did officially sign, confirming that he will be able to participate with South Sudan as they get ready for the Olympics run in Paris. So great for him, and shame on us for faulting someone for getting the opportunity to compete in the Olympics of all things. But there is a little downside for the Duke basketball team that he's not going to get to be around as long or earlier in the summer as some of those other freshmen and players coming into the mix.
Yeah, depending on their success and whatnot. But also you have to think about this. What's going to be better for him? Being in Durham, running with his teammates some, or honestly playing against grown men and with grown men in the Olympics. It's like he's going to learn more and probably develop better being away from Durham than he would be if he were here. And that's not saying anything about Duke's offseason regimen. It's just the level of basketball that's being played on the international level.
Hey, you just said Embiid, right? You said the Embiid talk out there. And Embiid is now playing for Team USA this summer. So that's a big body right there in the mix for the Olympics for sure. All right, one more timeout, and then when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about the newest guys that Duke basketball has gotten. We'll hear Josh's take on them when we return. Locked On Blue Devils here today is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. I love FanDuel, and you should too. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL, baseball in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every single game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. You can bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks. All of this on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook and a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Our show today is also brought to you by Gametime. This, of course, is my favorite ticketing app. Gametime is now an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets even faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer that it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and the lowest price guaranteed, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. Again, those last-minute deals are awesome. You can get a panoramic view from your seat in the app before you buy. Gametime has the lowest price guaranteed, or Gametime will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Gametime app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. Final few moments here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. JJ Jackson alongside Josh Cox from Duke Football Talk Section 17 podcast and the Duke Report. All right, tell me how you're feeling. Malik Brown and Mason Gillis have committed to play basketball for this season. Give me a deeper thought on these guys joining the Brotherhood, Josh.
Yeah, I'll start with Mason Gillis. I mean, obviously coming to Duke from Purdue as a grad transfer, so he is that older player. I believe he's 23, 24 years old. He redshirted at Purdue one season, so I mean, this is like season number 6 for him. By the way, I think Duke fans and fans in general need to kind of get over this making fun of players for being in college so long, because Duke's benefiting from it this year. Other teams benefited from it last year. It is what it is. The one thing I'll say, interesting, and I'm sure, if you've done any digging at all, Mason Gillis, you know that he started, quite a bit his freshman, sophomore, and junior season. And then this past year, he came off the bench. And so he had to accept a different role on this Purdue team. However, my man shot 46.8% from three-point line, shooting over 3 threes per game. So decent volume, shooting 47% from beyond the arc. So I love that about him. I'll tell you what else I like about him. There was a clip circulating around social media, and I believe it was the Indiana game. JJ, you may have seen this, but Gillis was shooting free throws before in the warm-ups, And evidently Indiana lined up for the national anthem early. You know how you do the straight line coming out to the bench? And it was right in the way of where he was shooting his free throws. And, man, he didn't move. Like, he had players standing, like, right here, like, right on him. And he just sat there and kept shooting his free throws. And, like, I like that, man. Like, we need a guy like that in Durham. I know people hate Duke already, so who cares, right? Like, we need a guy that's like, you know, they're not going to let teams, you know, bully Duke. And so that toughness factor that we spoke about throughout the season, I think Mason Gillis helps us. And then speaking of toughness, Malik Brown. Malik Brown, not the 3-point sharpshooter that Mason Gillis is. Malik Brown, though, is a little bit, I believe he's a little bit longer, a little bit bigger, plays really good defense. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he was first team all defense in the ACC this past season. He had a heck of a game against Duke, if I'm not mistaken, as well, played really well against Duke. And so he's a guy that, you know, there's the best player on the other team, and you're like, hey, that's your responsibility to stop him. I also like the way he pads stats. He rebounds well, averages just under 10 a game, I believe, just over 7 rebounds. Just a guy you want. I mean, Coach Scheyer said it in the official release. You know, he's just that intense guy that's going to do the dirty work and the small things that you really want on your team. Not as old as Mason Gillis, still has, I believe, 2 years of eligibility left in college.
Right.
And so that's another positive there for Malik Brown. But I believe these two guys give us some flexibility on offense and defense. Obviously, they can switch and play, guard multiple positions. And so 2 great pickups for Coach Scheyer.
And then finally, let's do a little portal update for players that have left the Brotherhood. This was put together over on the Duke Basketball Report over at DBR. Sean Stewart has been on visits to Cincinnati and Ohio State. Good to see him getting looks there for what could take place. TJ Power has apparently had Arkansas, Kentucky, Michigan, BYU, Wake Forest, USC, Miami, Notre Dame, West Virginia, Boston College, and Iowa after him. Jaden Shute is hearing from Butler, Creighton, Dayton, Davidson, DePaul, Notre Dame, Oregon, Penn State, St. Mary's, UCF, Virginia Tech. Christian Reeves has a visit currently scheduled to Mississippi State. And then we heard Connor O'Neill last week talk about us with Jalen Blake's potentially considering Davidson in state. And I think he'd do great after getting his Duke degree over at a place like Davidson. So going to be interesting to see where the former Duke guys end up after their playing days are over at Duke.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, for sure. And I'm really interested to see. I mean, this is a new era. This is all brand new. And so I really want to see these guys succeed. You know, I'd love to see a Sean Stewart just take those steps that we think he could take and, you know, wind up being a senior and, you know what I mean, all, you know, Big Ten or whatever. Like, that would be incredible. I'd love to see Christian Reeves, man. What did he say, Mississippi State, I believe?
Yep.
I think Christian Reeves was lacking opportunities, obviously, in staying injury-free. And he has limitations, don't get me wrong, but the guy's over 7 foot tall. He's the blue-white scrimmage all-star, right? I mean, he's that guy. But I do believe in the right system with the right people. You know, he can be successful. And so, yeah, I don't want to see, you know, I know that in conference, you mentioned Notre Dame, Virginia Tech with Jaden Shute and other things like that. I don't like the in-conference thing, but it would be nice to see our guys every now and then and have a little bit of fun with that. So your boy Jaden Shute, you know. So we'll see what happens, man. We'll see what happens. These guys are, you know, hopefully they'll all find a home somewhere, and they will. You know, the portal numbers are a little bit, you know, are a little odd, especially with the COVID year still in play.
Yeah.
But I think all of our guys will find a home, and I want to see them succeed.
Yeah, TJ Power, Wake Forest, Miami, Notre Dame, Boston College. Those were the 4 ACC schools there in the mix. It's going to be strange, but this is college basketball we're moving into here nowadays in 2024, 2025. So, Josh, hey, man, it's great to see you. Thanks for being on the show once again, and we'll do this again soon, okay?
JJ, have a great week, man. We'll see you.
All right, that's Josh Cox joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. Go follow him on social media at Joshua Cox. That'll do it for our show here today. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on X at LO_Blue Devils, and leave us a 5-star rating and written review. That'll do it. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you tomorrow. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.